Hello, friends. We have a wonderful episode for you today. I am here with my friends Dave and Jamielynn Sharp, who a lot of you will know. I think most of you will know by now. I'm just going to go ahead and let them tell their story so that you can hear what's happened to them recently, just a few weeks ago, I think 3 weeks ago in a day, if I'm not mistaken. So welcome to my show. I'm so glad you're here.
Thanks, Karen.
Yeah.
It's so good to be here. You go first.
You want me to go first?
Yeah, you go first.
All right. Well, so polygamy is a topic that Jamie has always kind of struggled with. And me, I guess I'm just a little more easily to put things on my shelf, right? And at times I'm like, it's a good thing that I just don't look into things very often because then I can just ignore it, right? And that all changed in about 2021, was it? You think?
2019, actually, where it was really starting to bother me. And
that's true.
Exploded in 2021, I would say.
Yeah, she was kind of struggling with the principle, like how could God ever command polygamy? And for years I tried to justify it. And for a while I was kind of able to help her put it on her shelf, but she took it down every couple of days, just to stew over it a little bit. And it really kind of hit its head in 2021. Where we actually started diving down deep into the church narrative and the church doctrine behind polygamy, using faithful resources. So we were going to like the Joseph Smith, or not the Joseph Smith papers. We were going to the Journal of Discourses, and reading Brigham Young and Heber C. Kimball and like Orson Pratt. And we'd go to the church website, the Saints books. I think that's probably really what started it in 2019, getting it back in our minds is the Saints books. But we just tried to accept the narrative, but it just never really worked. And it was really hard to accept the narrative. I'll tell you the biggest thing for me was in Jacob chapter 2, when he is condemning David and Solomon for using them as an excuse to be able to practice polygamy. Jamie was always like, it says right here that it's an abomination and what they were doing was wrong. And I'm like, yeah, but D&C 132 clarifies that and says just Bathsheba.
All the other wives were given to them of God. Yeah, it says the absolute opposite. And just to interject, I saw that for years. And I admit that I said to myself, well, the D&C is newer, so I guess Jacob got it wrong. That's literally what I told myself for all that time. I'm very ashamed of that now. Joseph Smith said the Book of Mormon was the most correct book. So how I arrived at that conclusion is anybody's guess. But I'm with you. That was a hard one, Jamielynn, to see the absolute complete contradiction. They do not work together. That's the word
that I would use is contradiction. I'd read Jacob 2, and then I would read 132, and all I'd see is this contradiction that did not match up. And I'd show him, and he would say, well,
it's just clarifying it. It's clarifying it, right?
It was not clarifying.
And well, I think maybe if I'm guilty of anything, that I've been too trusting of people, and too trusting of institutions, right?
And you don't expect the scriptures to be wrong, modern scripture.
Right.
We're taught, from day one that the Bible might have errors, right? Article of Faith 8,
right.
as far as it is translated correctly. So you go, oh, there could be mistakes there. But we're never taught to think that perhaps any of the other scripture could have errors that egregious, right? So let alone the Doctrine and Covenants. And so, and when you don't know that section didn't show up until 8 years after Joseph's death, that would have helped a lot, right, Jamielynn? I imagine. It
would have. That would have changed the understanding of it, because I really did think it was from Joseph Smith. And as I read it, I couldn't wrap my mind around it, obviously. And there's reasons for that, because it just does not make sense and it doesn't bring good fruits. But just as time went on, I'm grateful for the things that we have learned from it, because I think at first, focus was not on polygamy, right? And it shouldn't be. It should be focused on the Savior, Jesus Christ. But what this topic does is it always leads to the understanding of who God is, and who his character is, and who their character is, like as heavenly parents, and then who Jesus Christ is, and how much he loves his children. And so anyway, I don't know.
Yeah, I think that's been the biggest thing that we've gained from this whole thing is I feel like we've now know a little better who Christ is and who our Heavenly Father is and our Heavenly Mother. It was, through all my justifications, she always had something to come back. And so it was never settled, really.
Yeah.
I always tried to help her either put it on the shelf or I would try to find justifications, and it wasn't until 2024, early 2024, where I watched a debate between Jacob Hansen and Jacob Isbell. And that's really what did it for me. Is I was like, there is something off here. I've never heard these sources before. And so that Jacob Isbell was quoting. And so I started, 2020 did something to me where I don't trust anybody anymore. It completely ruined my trust in humanity. I'm gaining a little bit back in some people and things, but I don't take anybody's word for it. And so if I hear something, I usually go to the source and I study it out myself. I did the same thing during the elections, our county elections and our federal elections. If I heard something about somebody, I would try to contact that person individually, or I'd study it out deeply to see if what they were saying was true and try to go to firsthand sources. And so I put a lot of stock in firsthand contemporary sources. And so I started studying the Joseph Smith papers and all these sources that Jacob Isbell quoted. And what I came to the conclusion of is that Joseph, Emma, and Hiram all fought polygamy their entire lives. And as I started this journey, I was going to do it myself because this has caused quite a bit of tension for Jamie and I in our relationship, our marriage. And we've always had a great marriage. I'm not trying to undermine that at all, but there was a period of quite a bit of tension over this subject. And so I was going to just study it myself. I didn't want to get her hopes up, if polygamy really wasn't if polygamy really was of God and I was saying it wasn't, or I was studying it wasn't. So I said, I'm going to study this myself. I couldn't last 2 weeks before the evidences were overwhelming that I was like, I got to tell Jamie. And I just blurted it out in the kitchen one day and told her all the things that I've been studying. And what really hit me is I was standing right there. I had my hand on the island and I said, Jamie, there is all of these contradicting sources. We have people who say he wasn't. He says he was not a polygamist. And I believe Joseph. And, the Spirit did witness to me that was the case, that I should believe Joseph. That if I believe him that he saw God in Jesus Christ, and that I believe him that he was a seer to translate the Book of Mormon, then why should I believe him when he said that he only had one wife, and that was Emma, and that Emma was an elect lady? And it just changed my perspective of him. I no longer thought of him as lying to protect the church or sneaking behind Emma's back. And it made him such a more amazing man in my eyes. And then I can disregard all the evil things that people say about Emma. And man, I just love that woman. What a great lady. And Jamie's response, how did you respond in that?
Well, the thing that I come to is I was able to go to Palmyra, and I was able to go to the Sacred Grove and have some really neat experiences there. And then if you go to the temple, there's a little walking path, and I want to say it's on the east side of the temple, and I could be wrong because it's been a few years. But I was walking in the path in Palmyra and having an experience where I was pondering on Joseph Smith. And I felt so strongly that he was a prophet of God. And it was a testimony to me And for some reason, I've never believed that Joseph Smith was a polygamist. And people may think that,
even with all the stories.
Yeah, even with all the stories, it didn't set right with me from the very beginning. But I did struggle with the understanding that God was a polygamist. And so I don't understand why that happened, why I was able to disassociate Joseph Smith from polygamy versus God. But that's what happened in my experiences. But the testimony that I gained of the prophet Joseph was an essential part and role in what I experienced later on in 2019.
I see. So this trip to Palmyra was before all of, okay.
Yeah. And as I participated, just walking around, experiencing the things that were, the very beginning of where he started everything, seeing Jesus Christ and Heavenly Father in the grove. It was just a place where it helped me to understand that we can ask questions and that we shouldn't be afraid to ask questions. Joseph Smith, he was trying to figure out which church to join, and he was given that answer so directly. So why is it that we can't? Well, I mean, I think what I would say is it's so important to question and be okay to question. And as we do, we can go to the right source, which is our Heavenly Father and our Heavenly Mother, and pray and ask for direction. And I've never been disappointed. I could go on so many topics where I would have enlightenment to my mind on certain things, whether it was on trying to overcome different types of struggles, for food, or just things that came to my mind that I needed to do in particular to help me in this journey of questioning and knowing that God would answer my prayers.
Very cool. What a great thing. I mean, it seems so obvious. How many times do the scriptures say that you can turn to him for answers? Ask, seek, knock, it shall be given unto you. It shall be opened unto you, over and over. So I love that's what it was based on, that your confidence was based on that God would answer you when you had a question. And yeah, I get that we have to be patient sometimes, but it's nice that you're listening so that you can hear the answers when they do come, because I feel like these answers are coming right now and people are still saying, well, God will tell us in his own time, he'll make these things known. I know, polygamy seems weird, or I don't like it either, but I just trust that God will finally give us, information on it at some point, or inspiration. And I'm like, now he's doing it now. But you're not seeing it. Yeah. Like, this is the time. I can't tell you how many people were like, well, not that many, but I mean, I had several people just say, I wish you could just wait, and just wait on the Lord's timing. I'm like, it is the Lord's timing. This is how he's doing it. So
truth is being spread forth on this very topic. And so to me, like, there's a scripture that we read about this morning, actually, and I think the book of Moses, how it's going to be, the truth will be spread forth. And I don't know, I can't quote it word for word. I can't quote it either, but it was just another, like, what
truth and light will go forth.
Truth and light will go forth.
So cool.
What's amazing about this is we've been told the same thing. We don't understand everything. We can't understand anything. So just wait. But the scriptures, they literally say, seek and ye shall find, knock and it shall be opened unto you. And it says that the mysteries of God, Alma says the mysteries of God can be unfolded to us. Joseph Smith, when he was in Liberty Jail, he wrote to the saints, and he told them that they could understand the truth of things as well. And then the other thing is that he told us that and once we find out the truth, that we should waste and wear out our lives and bringing to light the things of darkness. I think that the work that's going on right now with this, with the polygamy narrative in the church, is the church wants to dig their heels in and just maintain it and say we don't have the answers, and so to wait for the answers. I think it was such an inspired decision to start putting all these documents from the Joseph Smith era out to the world. And by doing that knowledge is coming forth. We don't have to wait anymore. We can read so many great documents. Are we going to know everything about it? No. But how are we supposed to find knowledge unless we study, pray, and learn about it? And that's been my answer when my stake president said, I just need you guys to wait on the Lord on this. I'm like, the Lord he's involved in this. I see his hand involved in this.
Same. So. That's same here. My stake president said the same thing. So it was like, well, I think this is how he's getting his word out. I think I will try to link in the description box, put a link to Larry H. Miller and his story about how he was inspired to help fund the Joseph Smith Papers project, because it's a beautiful, miraculous story. I love it so much. So I'll try to dig that up if I have that link and put it in the description box so people can see that. But this whole thing has been an inspired effort, and it is the way the Lord is revealing his will on this. And it's so, what's just, the more you think about it, the crazier it gets. Like God's going to be hiding his wishes for your marriage, details about your marital relationship. It's so fundamental to everything, to the church, to your lives, to my life, to everyone. Your marriage, he would want you to understand what that's supposed to look like, your marriage relationship. So of all the things that it's like, well, maybe he just doesn't want to reveal it right now. I'm like, nah.
No.
So anyway, we've been patient, but the thing is, we have been patient. Like this has been disturbing for decades, but it's like, well, it's in scripture. What are you going to do? I hope he will change my heart or help me understand it at some point. And we've put up with this for decades. And gosh, there was one lady, she was a teenager, and she found out about this alternate narrative that Joseph was not a polygamist when she was like 71. That's a long time to wait. Yeah. So I'm like, you guys, this is his hand revealing it. So the time for answers is now. So I need to know, when Dave told you that he found all these sources and it looks like Joseph Smith fought against polygamy, so they're in the kitchen, what was your reaction, Jamielynn? Had you ever seen any of these sources? I'm assuming not.
No, okay. I wasn't looking at that. I was, like David was saying, I was looking at the narrative of the church, because that's what I've always been taught to do, to just be faithful and just trust that the narrative of the church is the proper narrative. So when he told me, I was like, oh yeah, that totally makes sense. It didn't even it didn't shake me at all. And when he did tell me, that's the first thing I started sharing on Facebook, because I was like, this is so cool. It just makes sense completely. And so when I did that, I had some pushback that was pretty harsh. And it was,
we never thought we'd be in trouble for it. We actually were so excited that we found this. We're like, everybody's going to want to know about this.
Yes.
Same.
So
I had the same thought. I was like, we should all be doing cartwheels. This is great. And
it just looked like my natural instinct. And so people are like, well, that will ruin the succession. That will ruin this. That will ruin, the narrative of what the church is saying. And it never occurred to me, because it just, in my mind, I'm like, well, aren't we to improve and do better in our lives when we find out something wrong, and that we can be willing to repent and do better and move forward from there? That's my perspective. And it was just that simple.
It wouldn't be the first time the church has made mistakes, right? And so in our mind, it wasn't that big of a deal. It was like,
it wasn't offensive at all.
It was like, okay, the church made a big mistake on this. We can change, we can improve. They've made big mistakes before. So
I mean, it does. Oh, go ahead, Karen.
Well, sorry, I was just like, I do not understand, and people disagree, but I don't understand why it's so much different than the priesthood ban. That didn't come from God, and it didn't come from Joseph. It came from Brigham. That's acknowledged now. Yeah. I mean, there's a church has a little book in Deseret Book called Let's Talk About Race and Priesthood. And the author lays it at the feet of Brigham, because he had a racist culture or whatever the excuse is. But the bottom line is, it wasn't from God and it wasn't from Joseph. Why is this different? Why did that not, undermine Brigham and all the subsequent prophets? But this does. I cannot wrap my head around it. I can't.
Well, it's not the only thing that Brigham taught, and I'm sure you've mentioned these before, but he taught about blood atonement, that there was only certain sins that Jesus Christ's atonement could cover, and that other sins, you had to shed your own blood, or the person's blood had to be shed. We don't believe that. We believe in an infant atonement of Jesus Christ, and that his atonement covers everything. And so we've abandoned that belief. We've abandoned the belief that Adam is God the Father, which Brigham taught over the pulpit at many times. And so I don't understand why we keep digging our heels in this when I think this should be such good news, that, hey, look, and they say it ruins the succession. I'm like, well, blood atonement didn't ruin the succession, right? And
or the priesthood ban, which actually did last for decades and decades and decades.
Priesthood ban didn't ruin the succession.
Mm-hmm.
So,
for people, yeah.
I
don't get it. Anyway, that's just going to be a mystery, I guess, forever, because I still hear people saying that, and I don't understand the difference.
We do wonder why this is the golden calf,
Yeah,
why
it is a puzzle.
Yeah,
it is a puzzle. So, all right. So that's wonderful. And you guys got on the same page about it. So you start sharing it. And at what point, so Jamielynn, you were doing social media posts about it here and there. Yeah. And Dave, did you do any of that, or were you quiet until you started your podcast?
So I actually did a few posts, mostly like I would share Jamie's posts on it, I think really, Jamie really didn't get in trouble or a lot of pushback on her posts until I went in to talk to my bishop one day. I went in to talk to the bishop because, I was fine just sharing this with friends and people that I knew. There was some pushback from friends and people, but we were able to talk about it and work through those things. Like, well, you can believe that, I believe this, it's okay. But I think where the big pushback came is I went into the bishop to talk to him about the Come Follow Me lesson.
Actually, so I asked him to do it because I was the first counselor in the primary, and I was like, Dave, it would be good to just mention it to the bishop that maybe we shouldn't be having this lesson to teach our young children and have this be something that's in the lessons. So because he ended up going for me.
It mentioned polygamy in the lessons, even for the children's lessons.
Actually, they had a children's lesson in there with a video and illustrated, and it was really cringy. That's the best way I can put it. It was cringy because it made Joseph look like he was going behind Emma's back and sneaking around with young girls. It also made Emma look really bad because she wouldn't accept it. She was the unfaithful one. Now, so I went in to talk to the bishop about that. Before we met with the stake president about it, the church actually removed the parts about Emma that made her look really, really bad.
So let me clarify. So there were two things. I know last summer there was Doctrine and Covenant Stories for Children.
Yep.
That's so I know that was put online, and that's the one that had the little cartoons, and
so when I say Come Follow Me, I guess it was the Come Follow Me lesson on 132.
Okay.
It didn't go into a lot of detail for the children, but it had study helps, a study helps link in the Come Follow Me lesson
to that.
And so when the primary teachers are trying to teach this subject to little children, it had a link in the Come Follow Me that said study helps, and it led you straight to those videos.
Yeah.
And Jamie being in the primary presidency, you can walk by any one of the primary rooms and they're always using those little church videos that the church puts out and those stories because it's easy to teach to little children. And so, that was concerning to me that they might be doing that. And it was concerning to Jamie. So
for sure.
So my personality is just, more inward and whatnot, but I was like, I'll send him. And so he went in my behalf in a way. And then it didn't go too well. And then he called us both into
the stake president's office.
Well, it was together with Bishop.
Bishop.
Explained the situation, and I tried my best. And I'm just, more shy, but I would tear up because it was such a hard topic for me, and I tried to express that to my bishop, and he was very kind, but I think more he panicked. And so that's when we got sent to the stake president, and it became like
we wanted
a downward slope.
We wanted to take it up the chain of command, right? We kind of were like, we were taking the faithful approach. Like, okay, so we have a problem with the doctrine that's being taught to our children. We could either just go crazy public with it, or we can go up the chain of command to the bishop, stake president, 70. Try to go, and that's what we were trying to do.
People the proper channels.
Yeah.
We've always been like, what do you call true blue Mormons,
Yeah.
and just very, very dedicated to the church. And so, this was new for us, but it was like exciting too. And I was like, oh, Bishop will totally be chill with it. I was totally wrong.
Well, I think there was panic, and I think that's what caused it. And when we went to the stake president's office, he let us just explain where we were coming from and our studies, our journey, what we'd been through. And that was great. And it wasn't until I called him that night after a long, long meeting with them, because pretty much they told us, just be quiet about this, because this is the doctrine of the church. So you'll just have to accept it.
In a way that what they said is, just be patient and wait on the Lord. That was their response.
But in a phone call that night, I was asking some follow-up questions that I thought about after we went in to meet with him. And he mentioned to me in that meeting, one of the reasons that we were in that meeting was because people had screenshotted Jamie's Facebook posts and sent it to him. And he didn't tell us that in the meeting, but he told me that in the phone call afterwards. And so that became a common topic of conversation for the over 30 hours that we met with the stake presidency this year, is our Facebook posts, and then ended up
harming people and their faith. That was their main concern.
And have you ever met anyone who said that it did harm their faith?
No, but the stake president did mention a few people that started questioning things as a result of it.
And my biggest thing is, if you have an issue with someone, you go to that individual. It's pretty simple in my mind, but instead, it was sent to the stake president. And had they come to us with a concern, what would that have done? And I still don't know to this day, but maybe we could have had a healthy conversation that would have been a positive thing, rather than, going through this person and that person to try to help solve their issues that they were experiencing with us.
Totally. The same thing. I was told the same thing, that there were some people in the stake that were now, was harming their testimonies, or I don't know what. So that's secondhand. I would love to talk to them. And I asked, is there any way I could talk to them? Because I think I could help them understand this and navigate it. It was like, no. So yeah, the whole ability to face your accuser and things like that sort of went out the window as well, didn't it? Okay. So they're calling you in. So now it's open. They know how you feel. So then what, how did it escalate all the way to?
Really what happened is we were sharing it a little more quietly after those meetings, and somehow we made the correlation that our stake president had actually contacted Michelle Stone's stake president and tried to put pressure on her. And we're always told to kind of stay in our lanes, of revelation, hey,
your stewardship.
Your stewardship. And yet here he was going to Michelle Stone, stake president. And shortly after that, there was a lot of factors involved with Michelle's channel that got it taken down. But that was one of the things. That was one of the things that did it. And I felt some responsibility, I'll be honest. Michelle was very influential for us. Her videos are amazing. And she's put so much time and dedication and work into them. And so to see them disappear, really, I thought was, it was like the kidney shot, in boxing. It was a low blow. And I felt at that time, I felt some responsibility, because they said, well, there's this young couple, they've got a young family in Idaho, and Michelle's influencing them. So you need to put some pressure there. But
if they only knew the influence, that it was so positive, it was not negative.
It wasn't, yeah. And actually, Michelle did have a big influence, but so did so many other people, And so I felt some responsibility, and people were needing something. They were looking for something, because this was helping a lot of people. And so I decided I needed to put up a YouTube channel. Now, anybody who's seen my videos, they're dry. They're pretty boring. I feel like I just read a lot of documents.
I love them. I think they're authentic and cool and sincere and casual. I think they're excellent, but keep going.
Anyway, not a lot of fun graphics or music or anything like that, but I'm just trying to help people get the word out there. Where Michelle's channel got taken down, I was trying to do my best to kind of make restitution for making that, being involved in that situation. So everybody's sorry about if we had any influence in that, because we all miss Michelle. But
that ball was rolling well before that, so I think you're all right. But
I know
you do feel bad because, of course, there have been people that have shared my work and then gotten on the chopping block because of it. And so it's like you feel like, you second guess yourself. That's just normal. And so prayerfully just asking Heavenly Father, was this a mistake? Should I have kept it? And as soon as you ask that, at least for me, as soon as I ask that, like, should I have kept quiet? It's such an obvious answer. Like, he just pours out a big, no, you shouldn't have kept quiet. I don't want you to be hearers of the word and not doers, right? And it's just all these scriptures flood my mind. So it's like, okay, all right. And it's just, sometimes we're called to suffer for Christ's sake. And that's all over the scriptures too. So it's rough, but it's hard to see people being disciplined, punished, whatever you want to call it, because they're, finding out these things. And it's so painful to watch. It's my husband just the other day, he said it's because we actually know of another couple that's on the chopping block and they don't have a YouTube channel. They have nothing. So that we'll see how that plays out. But my husband the other day said it's so much harder to watch someone else be disciplined than to be disciplined. It just wasn't a big deal for me because I knew that God wanted me to do this. But when you watch this happen to somebody else, it's really, really heart-wrenching.
It is.
So people ask about the timeline, Dave. So you started your channel after Michelle's were taken down, if I'm not mistaken. Is that correct?
Yeah,
okay.
That's correct.
And then you had them up for some months.
Yeah.
And then you were told to take them down or encouraged. And so you took them down, but then you put them back up. Tell us a little bit of details for that.
Yeah. So I decided, oh man, it's hard decisions, trying to juggle. We've got young children and our church isn't just a religion, but it's also a culture, right? And we live in a culture here where almost everybody's members of the church. And so.
And a community.
And a community. And so, we felt like we had stirred the pot a little bit. And so there was a lot of things that had happened when we were praying to decide what to do. And one of the stories that I told my mom was she was trying to, give us advice and help us through this. She's been so amazing through this whole thing. But I told her about Alma and Amulek and how they had to sit there and watch the records be burned and the people that had converted be burned. And I told her about that story. And then the next morning, and I said, I don't know if I'm Alma, if I'm Amulek or what, what am I supposed to, am I the one that's supposed to be like, no, we got to save these people, or are we the ones that are supposed to be like, no, the Spirit's restraining me to not put my hand forth. And so my mom, the next morning, she's cleaning up the house a little bit. My nieces and nephews were there. And there was a page from the Book of Mormon that had been ripped out of her Book of Mormon. And she was a little frustrated by my niece for doing it. And she was just about to kind of cuss her out for it. And she picks it up, and it is that very page.
Something stopped her.
Something stopped her from cussing her out. Yeah.
Look at the page.
Yeah, look at that page. And it was, sure enough, it was that very story about Alma and Amulek. And she sent me a picture of it. And then she said, call me when you get a minute. She said, look what got rent out of my Book of Mormon. She didn't mean to write rent, by the way. She meant to write ripped. But for some reason, it says, look what got rent out of my Book of Mormon. And I took that as a sign that I was like, okay, maybe the Spirit's restraining me right now from speaking. I'll be honest with you, as soon as I took my channel down, I felt like that was the wrong decision. But I held on to that decision for a few months because of the cultural pressure that I was experiencing and didn't know what to do with my kids, with the church and things. And so I didn't want to be on the chopping block, right? And so a lot of it was for me too. I was being a little selfish there, but I felt like it was wrong. And I kept reflecting on that word rent, that. And when we look at the Book of Mormon, when Captain Moroni rent his coat and he held up the title of liberty, for Mormons, that word rent means something different, you know? And
That's
I realized that
he rented in order to share a message that was a message of hope and encouragement and spurring them to action. I love that. You're right. It does.
He was standing up against everybody. And he said, we got to do this in memory of our God, our religion, our families. And I was like, okay, so maybe I'm not Alma. I'm not the one that's saying the Spirit's restraining me. I'm not Amuel, like, hey, we got to stretch forth our hands. Maybe, unfortunately, I'm the one to be burned, you know? Maybe I'm one of those to be burned.
Wow.
And so Jamie and I talked about it a lot. We even discussed it with our older children. And our kids at first were hesitant, but when we talked about it, they're like, Dad, you got to put your channel back up. People need to know the truth. And it doesn't matter. You know, if you're spreading the truth and you're doing what God wants you to do, you're okay. And I'm so glad that my children and Jamie and we all feel that way. And so I put it back up. We went to Nauvoo and went to Missouri and just had some amazing experiences out there and did some recordings out there where a lot of this stuff was taking place. And I made some videos. And then it wasn't until just end of November, beginning of December, we started getting phone calls again. Hey, the stake president wants to meet with you. And once again, I took my videos down. I caved. I took my videos down. But I was going to take a different direction. I had a plan. I was going to take a different direction where I was just still going to be able to talk to people about it.
And that week when he did take it down, it was conversations to be had that you would not have expected, like left and right. It was like this way of opening up a new opportunity for David to discuss this topic. And so that's what took place that week he took it down.
It was amazing.
That's
I don't know.
cool.
I didn't know how many people were interested in talking about polygamy, but there were so many people where it just came up randomly. And I'm like, hey, let's talk about this, you know? So that was awesome.
So let me clarify again. So when you took them down the second time here, had they been threatening to remove your membership if you didn't at that point?
Yes.
That's okay. So you had that decision to make. And so you,
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So we decided to do it.
And then the people that you had these conversations with, were they ward members or strangers or both, or where did these opportunities to talk about it arise from?
Some people just up the road from us. There was a family up there. And then from just people's acquaintances that have taken place. It was just interesting how it just was brought up.
Some of my cousins contacted us and said, hey, you know, did you know this about our ancestor, you know? And so we talked about that. And hey, did you know that this happened? And we're like, yes. And so we start talking because they had heard that we had been studying these things. And so I think that helped. And, you know, honestly, it came up with the girl who cuts my kids and my hair, you know, and she happens to be a descendant of the same guy that I am, third great grandfather. And so we brought it up there, and it's interesting how it all just happened. And so I was given opportunities to talk about it still. But something was different this time when we were threatened with excommunication than it was back in like July when it happened before. In July, he said, I'm not gonna monitor your private conversations. I can't stop you there. But at this meeting, he said, you can't have any conversations about it. And that's where Jamie and I had to draw the line. We had talked about it before, and we're like, hey, if this is the case, when we go into this meeting, I will take my videos down. I'll take my Facebook post down. We did it right away. But we said we cannot refuse to have conversations. And in that meeting, we said, look, we won't even go solicit opportunities. We will just, if the Spirit directs us to talk to somebody about it who is struggling with their faith in Jesus Christ because of this principle, or because of the restoration of the gospel through Joseph Smith because of it, we have answers where we can help them. And he said, no, that is teaching against the doctrines of the church. And I've asked you not to. And if I tell you not to and you keep doing it, that's the church's definition of apostasy, which go to the scriptures. I want to see the scriptures define that not following your local leader as apostasy. But anyway,
Right.
So,
And if I'm not mistaken, I don't know. I don't have the handbook, that section memorized, but it seems like it says publicly, but maybe I'm not right on that. Maybe it just
it does say public opposition, but he said that is public. He said when you're talking in conversations, that's public.
That's amazing. That means there's nothing private in your life except for the two of you. I mean,
Right.
that's just extraordinary to define public as talking to someone that's not Jamielynn. Like that
Right.
is crazy. That is, no one would agree with that definition. It's not the definition of anything. You might be able to make a case for a Facebook post, even that. I guess it would depend on your Facebook settings, whether it's set to public or private or just your friends. But he's saying even talking to friends or one-on-one conversations with a stranger or a friend,
Or
that
cousins
constitutes,
or
cousins, family members, that would constitute publicly sharing, which is just an extraordinary line to cross. That's incredible. You never expected this. I mean,
No.
the definitions are skewed. The overreach is extraordinary. I've never seen anything like it. So here you are, and you have decided to take down your channel was down at the time that these conversations are happening. And if I can get you to pin down what was said, my understanding, you correct me if I'm wrong, was that you were told that, yes, you were encouraged to go ahead and promise that you wouldn't share this with anyone. And when you were uncomfortable making that promise, he assured you that it was okay to promise it, because if you slipped up and accidentally talked to someone when you shouldn't, you could come to him, you could come to your stake president and sort of confess that and work through it. Is that correct?
That's correct.
You should tell more details about that one.
Well, I mean, it's pretty explanatory, but when he asked in the interview or the meeting, he said he likened it actually to pornography, and it gave that scenario when someone is struggling with pornography, they can come in and that's the process of repentance for them to be able to work through with the stake president, and then they can work at it again. And if they slip up, they can go talk to him. And he goes, you can do the same thing, and I said to him, I said it kindly, but I was like, you're likening my situation to something that to me doesn't make any sense. I mean, this is
the words of Joseph Smith to polygamy, or not to polygamy, to about polygamy to pornography. That just is a little weird.
Church history, talking about church history is similar to having a porn problem. This is extraordinary. And this is like, I know that people, well, I'll let you finish that up, but I know people in comment sections to your videos and elsewhere are like, well, I know, they must have been doing something else, or they're not telling the whole story. I'm like, is that right there not enough? Not enough to show the overreach that was happening, unless people are just believing that you guys are making this up out of whole cloth. How is this portion of the story not plenty to say, yeah, there's extreme overreach going on? This I don't understand. And I do hate that even if you guys waive your right to privacy about what happened in the council meeting and these interviews, even if you were to waive your right for that privacy and say, I don't care, they can talk about it, the stake president is still, my understanding is that he's still not allowed to talk about it. And that's a shame, because when he's not allowed to say his part, how can you have both sides? Of course you can't. So people that are like, well, we're not getting the other side. Well, you're never going to, because that's how the system's set up. So it's impossible to get the other side. They're not allowed to tell the other side. So this is all you have to go on. And my thing is, if you had said this and it wasn't true, I think the church would have come down on you right now like crazy for, slander and libel. And so that's not happened. And I believe your story. I mean, I know you guys, so of course I believe you, but this is not something you make up, the stuff you're saying. So anyway, I don't know how to help people who are just convinced that there's more to it, but what you just told is plenty. So go ahead, Jamielynn.
Oh, well, it was just that basic, but I had a friend maybe give me a different interpretation that she was just or he was just maybe giving us the scenario that you can come in and repent for the things
Sure.
that you do wrong. But I'm like, this is not wrong. So it was hard for me to agree. I mean, I couldn't agree to that term. And so I didn't. And he was really frustrated. I would say, I don't know, he's a good man, and I know people get kind of roll their eyes when I say he's a good man, but he is a good man. I think that it's hard when we have such a different upbringing, and it makes it very complicated his layers are different than what I grew up with. And so we're going to have different understanding, but
absolutely. And do we not know the story of Paul? Paul, we have it right there. He thought he was doing what was right by persecuting Christians. He thought he was doing what's right.
And so we just love them for it.
Yeah, when he found out that he wasn't, and it took a lot for him to find that out, but when God made it known unto him, he turned from it and was sorry and repented, and he felt terrible about that, of course. So you can't just be like, how can you say Paul was a good guy when he did this? It's like he was trying to do what was right. And so, like, I love the grace that you're giving them to say, he grew up in a different paradigm and his views are just different on what constitutes, protecting the kingdom of God or whatever. Like for you and for me, it's truth above all, but for him, it's like church policy. Okay, that's just his opinion.
And honestly, it's not offensive to me. If I have always said this, if people aren't interested in what we have to say, I'm okay.
We don't push it on anybody.
But I mean, it's a fun conversation. I enjoy it. If people want to learn more, I'm happy to discuss it and have conversation. And that's just something that we weren't willing to give up.
It's interesting. I had a friend right after this all happened. He sent me a scriptures, John 16:2. And he was talking about the leaders of the church in Jesus's day. And he said, Jesus told his disciples, he said, the time will come that whosoever killeth you will thinketh that he do God a favor. And our religious leaders in this situation, I think, are doing the same thing. I think it's just a type and shadow that, whoever excommunicates you for talking about this probably thinks he's doing God a favor. And one day, everything will be made known, and I think he'll wake up to what happened there and what was wrong. But I can't tell you how many people have come out of the woodworks after our excommunication to contact us. I don't know how they're finding our phone number or address or stalking us on Facebook. I don't know how they're finding that. I try to find somebody, I can't find them, but they find us and they're like, your story is so similar to ours. Your waking up story. A lot of these people haven't come forward and been public with it yet, but so many women are experiencing heartbreak still as a result of polygamy, with the thought of eternal polygamy being in their future.
So I've had literally 3 conversations this week with individuals who I had I knew one of them, but then 2 of them, we had no clue who they were. And
one you knew, we didn't know she felt the same.
Yeah, her story is very similar to mine. And we had a chat yesterday for over an hour. It was fantastic. It was really enjoyable to visit with her. And then another couple from Canada. It was just so cool to know that there's people who are just longing for a discussion. And so it's been really, really good.
Okay, that is amazing, all these experiences that you've been able to have talking with people. I think God does provide. He puts people on your path that need the message, no matter if you're shut down or what happens. So I think that's fabulous. So I believe that your membership council, the actual council, which was 3 weeks ago yesterday, and it was at 7:30 a.m., if I'm not mistaken. Yeah. And I believe you said that it lasted 6.5 hours. Is that right?
Yeah.
Okay. So we won't go into detail with that because I know you did on your own channel. So I'll put a link to that. But I think it's funny because I was like 7:30 in the morning on a Friday, and you said, well, we did have the choice of 8:30 in the evening on another day, but it didn't work. And I just started laughing after I did the math there. Like, well, if it had been 6.5 hours starting at 8:30 at night, that would have been 3 a.m. So probably good that you went in the morning. So anyway, so I'm glad that, and you said, Jamielynn, that your mom was there. And you said
Yeah,
you
my
had
mom
several
and dad.
people.
Yeah,
Yeah.
my parents came, and I was so grateful for them contributing, and they were just so kind. My mom is a convert to the church, and so when she came in, she has Catholic background, and she just brought such a unique perspective, because right now I think what's happening is they want us to fit in this box. The church does, and you have people from all different walks of life, and it's important to bring those into, not to dismiss what the beliefs are, but to enhance them. That's how I would look at it. There's lots of different things from the Catholic faith that are beautiful too, and we can enjoy looking at it from different cultural backgrounds that can actually mesh beautifully.
Joseph Smith actually talked about all truth. And he said, we're willing to accept all truth that any religion has, as long as it's true.
No matter where it comes from, Mormonism embraces all truth, no matter where it comes from. Yeah, it's amazing. And he also talked about sometimes how you get at truth is hearing different points of view so that you can get in there and figure out what's true and what's false. And I like that. I mean, that's widely paraphrased, but he was all about openness and asking your questions and discussing these things and embracing all truth no matter where it came from. There was no like, well, if the president of the church didn't say it, no one can think it. So it's just really it's so different now. But so Jamielynn, I know that you were disfellowshipped to your surprise. You were not excommunicated while Dave was. So I know that you described in your video again that that was awkward at the time and confusing, and you are totally on the same page. So why the different treatment? I realized that was a question, but so I think it's useful. Like my husband wasn't excommunicated. I was. If anyone doesn't know that, I was excommunicated also, of course. But his still being a member is very useful because he still has access to the ward directory when I need an address or the calendar or things like that. So anyway, is that still a problem at all for you?
No, it was. So the day after it happened, I had to navigate from a different angle again. It sideswiped me, and I think it was difficult because the name itself just displaced my husband and I. And so I thought, like, okay, how am I gonna teach or tell the kids this? Like, what does this all mean? And so it was just kind of weird in the beginning, but I had someone say something very enlightening to me, where they're like, well, you're struggling. It was on one of the comment section. Someone said, maybe you ought to be praying for unity again, because I had that clarity moment of feeling that unified experience with my husband in the membership council. It did, I mean, the adversary is very quick to target where you can find the strengths and try to make them weak. So anyway, I ended up doing a lot of prayer that week, and it was very beneficial, even though the name itself is still, I don't know, it's so silly to me, disfellowship versus excommunicate.
Well, and they don't really call it that anymore. It's like membership removal or
withdrawal.
membership restrictions. And I'm like, okay, so you rebranded it, but it's still the same thing.
I teased my stake president that's like, you have a membership to Sam's Club and you're removing your membership, and it's just such a, like, I don't know, like, what is superficial term is how I would say it. But
right.
Anyway,
so you have so technically you have membership restrictions, and Dave has had his membership withdrawn. Is that correct?
Probably appropriate to say. So anyway, I just don't understand, because I told him how important it was for me and my husband to be unified. And that has always been the case with my husband and I. When he helped me through my dark times, yes, we've had our struggles through trying to understand our different perspectives, but then he was always there for me, and he never left my side. And so when I went into this whole thing with him, we've been with each other ever since. And that was very important to me. And I recognized that when I was in there. And the way that it was hard because to demean my husband right in front of me the way that they did was not appropriate. And we had to, I saw that right away. And so I had to call it out for what it was. And I said to them, it's very important for me to stay unified with my husband. And they could say, well, I could see where you're coming from, but this is what the Lord has chosen that we need to do for you both. And so just the name itself has been displaceful, but we're working through it.
It's a little interesting because I don't know, like, I wasn't like trying to get her excommunicated, and I don't know that she was exactly trying to get excommunicated as well, but she's like, if it makes any difference, I'm going to speak on a panel at the Journal of Mormon Polygamy, and I'm going to be more open. If I need to make a Facebook post, I can, and they wouldn't excommunicate her, but I was excommunicated
Try as you might.
for a conversation that I might have. Like, I might have a conversation one day, and I got excommunicated because I wouldn't promise that I wouldn't say anything. She comes right out and she's like, "Okay, you're not excommunicating me. I'm gonna do it."
There's still a chance. I mean, there's a good chance that it'll still end up happening, but because of our situation, we chose to have conversation. That was our boundary, and they still chose to give us consequences for those things. So I'm like, well, his channel's back up. I'm posting again. So that's just, I mean, if they're going to do it anyway, we might as well continue to just move forward.
We had, during that whole time, it was hard. And the stake president did give us a few weeks to like think about it and go through it. During that time, I listened to Ronald Reagan's speech, and this doesn't have to be Democrat or Republican or anything. It's just called A Time for Choosing. It's a really good speech, and he talks about how this is a fight between good and evil. It's not a fight between left and right or anything like this. It's a good fight of good and evil. And Jim Caviezel, who plays Jesus Christ in what is that famous movie?
Passion of the Christ.
Passion of the Christ. He talks about that speech and kind of adapts it to himself. He does a great job. It's on YouTube. You can listen to that. But he says, the devil wants us to retreat until we can't retreat anymore. And at that point, you have to stand up. And that's how Jamie and I felt, is like we had retreated. We took our YouTube, our Facebook, made so many decisions where we were retreating, and finally we reached that point where we're like, this is our line. We have, if we lose this battle here, then where do we go from here? And so we had to draw our line. The other thing that really influenced our decision is we went and watched that movie,
Truth and Treason.
Truth and Treason.
Same as what you did, right, Karen?
Right. Mm-hmm.
And the whole time as we were facing this decision, of course, we weren't faced with death like he was. What a brave soul and individual that he was, that truth was that important to him that he'd be willing to die for the cause of truth, and that was a huge influence for us. We had studied his story many times before the movie ever came out.
This is Helmut Hubner, the youngest person to be formally executed by the Nazi regime. Yeah.
And during that movie, it just, in much less of a way, it paralleled what we were going through. And were we going to stand for truth, or were we going to retreat? Because honestly, even in my disciplinary council, he said, here's your charges. Are you willing not to talk about this? And pretty much it seemed like it would all go away if I just promised I wouldn't talk about it. And man, there was a part of me that just wanted to say, I just want this all to go away, but I couldn't. So.
Wow. Okay. You guys are amazing. Seriously. I love that so much. And I hope it gives other people courage too. And, I recognize that sometimes there's a time to be, to kind of fly under the radar. I always think of the story of Abinadi, how he came in disguise at first, but then there came a time that he came as himself and he identified himself. So, I mean, I can't escape that story. So I'm very patient and totally recognize that everyone has their own path that they need to follow. And and
I'm
that
glad you brought that up, Karen, because that's been on my mind a lot with people. There's a lot of friends that I know who are just so courageous. And right now their situations are all so unique where, a spouse isn't involved. They're not wanting to learn about this topic. Their children. There's a lot of things that really go into the factors that it can be a difficult thing for them, and maybe it's just not their time, and that's okay too. I don't think
that doesn't make them weak. It doesn't, it doesn't make them a less of a voice. And everybody has to pray and individually receive their answer, what they should do. This was our answer, but that doesn't mean that making a YouTube channel or posting on Facebook or, knocking down the stake president's door to talk to him about it is the answer, right, for them.
Right. Yeah, exactly. So you guys are still attending your ward, is that correct?
Yeah, that's right.
Okay. And have you, people always are curious if people are treating you different, if you feel like people are treating you differently, in my case, by and large, no, there's a person or two in the ward that has had their feathers ruffled. And so we'll sort of go and, tell the stake president, like, oh, she made a comment in Relief Society, so he actually talked to me recently and said, you can't talk in Relief Society or Sunday school. You can't participate. You can just come. And so I was like, all right, and he's like, that's the agreement for you to be able to keep coming to church. So there was that sort of little undertone of a threat, like, you're not going to be able to come unless you promise not to speak. So I'm like, okay, I'm off. So, so people are all different, but that's the exception. That's absolutely the exception. Most, and by most, I mean 90% or more of the ward has been totally fine. They give me hugs. They ask how I'm doing, and they're just great. So that's cool. So how has it been for you? I know not every ward's the same. So how has it been in your ward?
It's funny because I went the first week after we were he was excommunicated and I was disfellowshipped. I'm just going to say it that way because it's easier for me to say.
Right. Disciplined. We were disciplined. How's that?
Disciplined.
And then I really did not want to go the following weekend. Instead, we actually went and saw my grandma, and it was a very good day. And I'm glad we went that route just because I needed just a reprieve from all the emotions that I was experiencing and whatnot.
She's in a nursing home and she's lonely, and it was amazing.
Yeah, it was good to see grandma. And then the following last week we went, and I was like, I do not want to go. I did not want to go. So I'm just going to be honest. I was really struggling to want to participate. And I decided, okay, I'm going to go to take my kids. And so we went together, and a lady came up to me that day and gave me a big hug. And she's just said, I want you to know I'm here for you. And I had no idea she even knew about our situation.
And she didn't say she knew about it.
And she didn't say anything about it except for that she was here to support us, and that she has no, how did she put it?
She said, she grabbed our hands and gave Jamie a hug. I just want you to know that no matter what, that I'll always see you as true disciples. Oh. And she didn't say, hey, I watched your video where you talked about your excommunication. She didn't say anything like that. She just said, I just want you to know that I always think of you as true disciples.
Beautiful.
And it was really good.
The reception has been very good in our ward. People have been very, very friendly, loving.
Made it almost, I would say, a little bit easier because at first they kind of thought we were just a little bit crazy maybe is the word. And now that they know we've probably been disfellowshipped and excommunicated, maybe not everybody, but a lot of people do now. And it's just like, okay, let's move on. We move forward from here. And so they've been really
almost made it better, honestly. These people were a little standoffish before, and now that the discipline has happened, I think, I don't know.
Everyone's taken a big breath, and now we're like, okay, let's move forward. But
that's interesting. Yeah, I could totally see that. It's like, okay, now we're all aware, it's out in the open or whatever. And anyway, they
don't have to walk on eggshells anymore.
Right, exactly. And you're talking about it openly, so hopefully they feel like they can too. That's cool.
Mm-hmm.
Are you guys planning to send in an appeal letter? I know you have 30, technically you have 30 days from the date of the discipline to send in an appeal.
Yeah.
And so I'm curious if you're going to,
We've
if you're planning.
discussed it. I don't have a lot of hope in it, just because they made their decision.
Zero. I'll just tell you, there's zero. Yeah, I got mine back. I guess I didn't formally tell people that on an episode, but I did. But so I sent in my appeal and I got my answer back. So the stake president called me in to read me the answer to the appeal, to read the response to my appeal, and also to remind me that I can't talk at church, talk in class. Okay. And so I can talk in the hallways, but not about this, but I can't say anything in the classes. I can't read scriptures. I can't pray. I can't do anything. So that was, I'm like, all right. So, but the answer to the appeal was no. And it was interesting because he read me their response. And at the end it said, and please convey this to Sister Hyatt, but do not give her a copy of it. And I was like, ah. So I have zero idea what that's about. Yeah, I can't even, I racked my brain for a little while. I don't know what the motivation would be there to withhold that from me, but it's okay. So anyway, so what were you going to say, Dave?
Oh, I was just going to say, after seeing what happened with you and I just going through this whole experience, I feel like there's just been a blatant disregard for what is true. It doesn't matter what is true. What matters is, are you going to bend the knee to the handbook? And if you're not, then there's really no point in me appealing at this point.
Certainly not. For me, it was just sort of to stand as a testimony, an extra, like give them their last chance to say no. And it comes from the first presidency, though. So that I thought was that was a little bit important to me to have it, supposedly go all the way up to the top. I don't know if it's a secretary. I wanted to see if they were, inkjet signatures or ballpoint pen signatures, but I wasn't allowed to see it. So just have it read to me. So anyway, who knows? But
my thoughts are similar to yours. Like, this could stand as a testimony for me, my testimony. So maybe I'll write them a letter. Do I have any hope in the appeal is maybe a better question. I don't have any hope in the appeal.
Right.
But maybe I'll write them a letter. If I'm given an opportunity to send one straight to the first presidency. But it's weird because my stake president said I can appeal, but I have to send the letter to him. Yeah. So I don't know if he sends in his defense with it.
Oh, that's a good question. I don't think so, but that's a good question. But they certainly are told the results of your membership council.
Yeah.
So, this one came back and said, yes, we uphold the decision of the council, of course. Okay. But anyway, so that's interesting. Yeah. When you mention that it's not about truth and you don't have a lot of hope, that's normal, because I was literally told multiple times that this is not about what's true and what's not true. It's about whether it aligned, whether what I was saying aligned with what's on the church website and what's being taught in the Saints book and things like that. So that was just an extraordinary thing to be told very clearly, that this is not about truth. It's not about what's true or not. And that just blew me away. So there's really nothing to say at that point, and the fact that you and I, all of us, were sharing things from the Joseph Smith Papers Project. I mean, that's the bulk of what we're sharing comes from either that or Brian Hales's website, which is another place the church itself directs people to, or, it's like, or the scriptures. And so all these things are completely legitimate sources for this information. And the church helped fund them. And yet when you bring them to light, you're shown the door. It is so mind-boggling. So it's like,
we actually laugh.
Yeah, you do. You laugh because absurd and funny both evoke laughter. That's just kind of a shame, because it's kind of awkward sometimes, but because you'll laugh at something that's terrible and you're like, I'm not callous. It's just that absurdity also evokes laughter. It's so sometimes you just like shake your head and go, are we is this a dream? Am I going to wake up? And it's like, you'll never believe I dreamed that the church kicked me out for believing Joseph Smith and telling about him. It's a crazy, crazy twilight zone that we're in.
And you keep waking up and like, oh no, this is real.
It's real.
It's interesting. It's for sure interesting, but there's been a lot of good things that have come from it too, though.
Good.
I think the greatest thing is like our relationship has gotten so much better because she's not worried about eternal polygamy anymore. And then she knows who God is. And so her relationship with God has gotten so much better. And we're still learning things about God, right? It doesn't know she knows all of his character. I don't know all of his character, but I feel like we know him better than we did before. And that's been so good for us. And we know Jesus Christ better than we did before. And I don't know, when you start taking off different layers of these false traditions and things that we've been a part of, all of a sudden the scriptures just come alive to you and you're like, oh, that's what that means. Oh, that's talking about us. That's not talking about
all the other
else.
churches, right?
Yeah,
that's all the other leaders or all the other people that are being chastened in the scriptures. You're like, that's me. And getting up on the Ramiumptum and we're so glad that we know everything and no one else does. And it's like, who would do that? So it's very, it's pretty painful sometimes. Like, wow, this is crazy. There's things that come out in the news. Even there was a recent one, because I'll just look at William sometimes and be like, your church, and then we have
I've made a few jokes about that with her, like, well,
yeah. And so it is in a way, it's a relief. I have to admit that there was a little tiny percentage of me because my church isn't fighting against me anymore. My church isn't frowning on my work anymore. My church I'm not at odds with my church anymore. Right. And so it's just kind of like, okay. It's just, it's a little bit of a weight off of me. So I will admit that.
The interesting part, even though I haven't been excommunicated yet, I say yet because I don't know what will happen. But I mean, I hope that whatever happens, they could just see my voice, that it's not a threatening thing. It's just to be kind and loving. But because of the situation where they chose to do that to my husband and not to me, I've actually had more freedom from this whole thing too. In a way, it's really strange.
It's like she can talk how she wants and she's still a member.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting. I mean, I don't have the rights as all members do, but it's I still have the membership intact, I guess, in that sense.
Yeah, that's intact. But yes, your kind of status at church is below a non-member, because a non-member would be perfectly free to. Well, I don't know if you have restrictions like that, but I know Dave's not supposed to talk in class and things like that, whereas a non-member could. Okay, she can't either. All right. So it's so interesting because someone who's never been a member can come and do all these things and, do several of the things. Even, I don't know if it's changed, but, 40 years ago, I knew of a non-member that held calling at church. He was the ward librarian, because they were like, you don't have to be a member for that. So his wife was a member and he was just a good guy. And he actually did eventually join the church. But for years and years, he was the librarian, even though he wasn't a member. But, we wouldn't be able to do that. I actually, my friend's little boy got baptized this morning, and she had asked me to be the chorister. And so now my usual MO would be to just do it and not ask. But in this case, where the stake president had said, you can't do these things or you're not going to be welcome, So I actually texted him and I said, can I lead the music? And then I looked at what they had said in the membership letter, in the, excommunication letter. And nothing like that was on there. So I texted him right back and I said, actually, I can see that that's totally okay. It looks like, So he texted back and he said, no, actually you can't, because that would be leading an activity. Did you get that in your letter? One of them was, you're not allowed to lead an activity, which I thought was
I'll have to look that up.
Yeah, look at it closely and see if they say the same thing. Yeah. But I thought leading an activity, I thought like, leading a Relief Society, meeting on a weekday or something like that. But he counted leading the music as leading an activity. And he added that, at baptisms, how sometimes they'll pass out little cards for everyone to tell the little kid congratulations and things like that. And he was like, you can't pass those out if there's something like that. And I was like, okay.
Are you serious?
I'm serious. That one.
Maybe you'd slip some of your pass along cards in there, huh? And they were worried that you were gonna start promoting the Joseph Smith papers.
We have to laugh, you guys. It's too
hard. My gosh, I didn't think of that. I love that, Dave, so much. I'm like, here's the congratulations and a pamphlet. Anyway, that's hilarious. Oh my gosh. Now come up with one for leading the music. Like, would I just take one of my pass along cards and lead the music with it, or I don't. Anyway, it's pretty arbitrary, but you guys are great. Well, I can see you're in good spirits, and I'm glad that you're being treated well and that you have friends and that your family is okay with this. Yeah. You probably have some extended family that's not, maybe, I don't know. I have the smallest family on the planet, so I have almost zero extended family, but most of them are okay. There's maybe some in-laws of in-laws that aren't, but we're, we still love each other. It's really okay. But so are you cool family-wise?
Yeah.
Yeah. Overall, I think it's been really good. There's
been a little bit of hiccups, I'm going to just say it, my sister-in-law, she's been going through some hard stuff, and we just adore her. She just doesn't think it's okay what they've done. And
so she's been going through a lot of emotions, just what happened with us.
Yeah.
It's actually making her question the church more now because of what they're doing to us than before.
I've had that a lot. I've had people that they were like, well, I realized that Joseph's not a polygamist. That didn't throw me for a loop, but this is why are they shutting down people who believe the founding prophet? I was like, well, if you figure that one out, you let me know,
People can't quite grasp wrap it around their minds, but overall, the families are doing good. My parents are great. My dad took me aside and just gave me a big hug, and he said, nothing has changed. And that's really how I feel. I don't feel like my marriage is in jeopardy in the eternities. I don't feel like, my children, I'm never going to see them again. All those things. I don't feel that way.
Right. You just, something about erasing your name from a piece of paper in a desk drawer somewhere doesn't actually affect the blessings that God extends to you. Who knew?
It doesn't actually blot your name out of the book of life.
Go figure.
You guys have my own book of life that I'm writing, and they can see it for what it is. And I've journaled a lot through this process. It's been a beautiful thing for me to reflect on and go back and be like, there was a time where when I was going through this polygamy thing, I literally took a piece of paper and wrote down all the things I hated about polygamy. And then I remember looking at that paper and tearing it up, thinking that my feelings were going to be going away with it. Unfortunately, that didn't happen, right? And so I wrote about that experience, and then I have all sorts of different poems that I've written and trying to navigate and process what I've experienced.
The dreams you've had.
Yeah, and also the fact that, we've had to meet with the state president over this, and it was just I have the whole story now for my family and for myself to be able to look at and read.
Beautiful. That's wonderful. That's gonna have an effect down the line. And so any of your posterity that ever hears the story, they'll read that and be like, wow, they were really strong and they really loved truth overall and loved Jesus. It's going to be awesome. I'm sure it's going to have an effect.
Yeah,
you guys are great.
Hope so too. So
well, thank you
You're
so
great,
much
Karen.
for talking.
We were just begging you to come on your show because, we just love you and your conversation. We didn't feel like this would be a threatening place at all. So.
Oh, you're so sweet. Well, you've done such a good job. I I remember I asked you very early on, invited you on, like, it's an open invitation whenever you're ready, if you're ready. And then you guys did such a good job on your own channel and things like that, that I was like, oh, maybe they don't need to come on. But so I was glad that you're still willing to come on and share again, because I love hearing the details and things like that. And anyway, just thank you so much for being courageous, for standing up for truth and doing what you believe God wants you to do. That is absolutely all that he asks of us. And we're just trying to do that. And
you too, Karen. Yeah.
Love you guys so much.
So much, Karen. It's
all right.
Visit.
All right. I'll talk to you soon.
Okay. Bye.
Okay. Bye.